Good morning, or good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started with our meeting, the San Diego County Arts and Culture Commission meeting, our first meeting with our commissioners here. Really fast housekeeping. Know you've all been told by attendees that the gates will close at 5:30 or 6. I will be downstairs to badge you guys out, so just wait for me. I'll badge you guys out, so don't worry about having to pay and things like that. Bathrooms are literally, I think, right across the hall from us, if you need any of that. And then there's a security outside to let you back in if you need to be let. But we're gonna go real fast into everything, try to get everybody moving, getting out. I know you guys have been here since 4 at least, so we'll go ahead and get started. And first is just roll call. So let me go ahead and pull up the thing. So I know I have, so Monica Fernandez here. Lucas O'Connor
here.
Renee Ricketts
Here.
Okay, thank you. Give me 1 second. Ladon, I'm gonna mispronounce your last name. I'm sorry.
Ladon Aquarnia.
Ladon Aquarnia. Jay Bell.
Here.
Alicia Shaw.
Here.
Bob Lehman.
Here.
Mary can't be with us today, and then Jim Gilliam.
Here.
So maybe we do quick welcome introductions. I think it's the first time a lot of you guys have met me, and sorry for the people on Zoom. I'm going to be the voice behind the screen for today's meeting as we work out this hybrid meeting thing. My name is Zhang Myers. I'm the one that's been sending you numerous emails emphasizing that you have to be here in person. I am the staff liaison for the Arts and Culture Commission and the manager of Arts and Culture programs at the county. It's a brand new position. We just started in July of last year, as is our office, is also brand new. So have a little patience with me as I'm learning and picking up things and things like that, but we are definitely here to help. And then I'm gonna turn it over to David Stotland.
Good evening. My name is David Stotland, and I am a deputy counsel. And so I'm the lawyer working for the county assigned to work with this committee. And I am looking forward to working with this committee and seeing where things go.
And then I don't know if you guys want, you guys just have to introduce yourself, but if you could just say your name real fast and then your district, or if you're a youth commissioner, I think hopefully mingled and met with each other, but just as a reminder.
Hi, Jim Gilliam. I'm from District 5, and Mary Perhox is not here today, and she's also from District 5. She is the executive director of the Fallbrook Arts Center, which, if you haven't been there, it's phenomenal. And so I've had 22 years in government arts administration with the city of Santa Ana, and then with the city of Encinitas, and I'm a musician.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Felicia Shaw. I'm executive director of the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition. It's over 30-year-old arts advocacy organization for the entire region. And I was appointed by District 4.
My name is Renee Ricketts. I was appointed by District 2. Currently, I am on the exhibition committee for San Diego Book Arts, and that's enough for now.
My name is Natalia. I'm one of the youth commissioners from District 1. I'm an interdisciplinary artist and community organizer from Chula Vista.
Everybody, Jay Bell, District 3. I'm a painter and printmaker. I'm the founder of a grassroots visual arts organization called Bylaws. Day job for a long time. I've been working for a company with arts, community, and economic development.
Monica Hernandez, representing District 1. I work with Casa Familiar, Development and Social Impact Officer, but I started as one of the founders for the Front Gallery.
Also, since I just sat myself at the head of the table, I'm Caroline Smith. I'm the director of the Office of Economic Development and Government Affairs for the county, and thrilled to be here because personally, in my life separate from the county, I am also a dancer, so I'm excited about this.
My name is Ladon Aquarnia, and I am a curator at I'm represented by representing District 3. I'm a curator Diego Museum of Art, and I'm also an active member of the Iranian community.
I'm Lucas O'Connor, District 1, currently Executive Director of the Progressive Labor Alliance, and before that spent 7+ years at the city and state levels working on the legislative side, doing arts and culture policy and grants and everything. So on the other side of what we're all about to embark upon, and glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Ever, and I'm from, I work at Arts, which is a national city, and I'm from District 1, and, yeah.
Hi, I'm Ada. I'm one of the youth commissioners, in case it isn't obvious. I'm from District 8, and I am the community affairs coordinator at Art Services.
I'm Bob Lehman. I'm the chair of the San Diego Regional Arts and Culture Coalition and the executive director of the Standing Museum Council, which represents 70 museums, parks, and aquariums, and things like that around San Diego County.
And then,
hello, my name's Robin Sassy. I'm actually a music advocate. I think I spoke with you once. I'm also on the Arts Committee at the University Club, and I came here because I'm just excited about this, and I just wanted to see what was going on. That's pretty much it.
And good evening, everybody. I'm Ryan Tribuco. I'm a community representative and legislative assistant for Chairwoman Nora Vargas, and the Arts Commission was literally the first project they gave me to work on, so the work that I did is why all of you are here today. This is my baby, and I'm so excited that you all are here. Great. Anyway. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Steve Lock, and I'm Deputy Director for Economic Development. Work with Caroline and Zach.
Yeah, my name is Ibrahim Ahmed. I'm a policy advisor. I also happen to be a resident artist at the Art District.
And you're on the commission?
I'm not. I'm a policy advisor. I'm staffing. Supervisor, so I'm one of his policy advisors.
Great.
In addition to the Arts and Culture Commission.
Very cool.
So we just wanted to let you know, you are very supported both by our Board of Supervisors and our staff, and then also so you can have a little bit of our faces, their names on emails as I email you, as David might email you, or Caroline, or so we're here for you guys. We're a small but mighty team. And then I don't know, Caroline, you wanted to make things.
Sure, I just want to set the stage in my about 17 and a half years, give or take a couple months, with the county. This is the third board and commission I've had the pleasure of staffing. And so I just, first and foremost, want to thank you. Maybe I shouldn't front load this since it's the first day, but I know what a tremendous amount of work this is and the passion that you have to be able to volunteer your time to do all of this work. And so I just wanted to start by saying a huge thank you to all of you. This is, we are so excited about all of this, but we can't do it without you. And we know that you're volunteering your time, your expertise, your energy, your passion. And we just, I want to let that go by because we do value that so much. The government can't do it alone, and we often are. Steve brought me a sticker the other day that was, gold quotes. I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Don't run. And so we don't want to be the experts driving the policy. We want that to be you all, and we're just so grateful that you agreed to come here. I will say though, at the end of the day, we are the government, and so David will cover the laws that govern us. I know Zhang jokes about how many times she said in person sensitive. For us, the transition for some of our boards and commissions from being online to coming back in person has been a painful one. And so thank you so much for your patience with us on that. And just certainly I'll go ahead and speak for Steve, because I get to. We are here to support Zhang, and then Maria Melendez on our team is currently on some well-deserved vacation, but she'll be back in action to support Zhang at the next meeting, and we're here to work with the team, and just incredibly grateful for our Board of Supervisors team that is here, Ibrahim and Ryan, and the support that they've given us as we've been able to stand this up. So we are here to help, even though I made a joke about it. We are here to help, and all the Brown Act things, all of the things that are given to us by the laws of the great state of California to make sure that we are transparent to the public in the things that we do. David keeps us on track with all of that. So I know sometimes it may seem like a lot to take on, but certainly we want to make sure that we are providing that transparency to the public in the way that the Brown Act demands from us. But I don't want to sugarcoat it that it isn't a lot. Bylaws are a lot to take on, projects are a lot to take on, policies are a lot to take on, and we're here to help however we can. So I just wanted to provide that thanks, and I will scoot my chair back so that Zhang and David can get to the actual work you need to do tonight. So thank you all so much.
So with that, we're actually going to go ahead and move to public comment. We do have a couple people on our Zoom. I just don't know if they were interested in comment. Well, more than a couple of people. So if they are interested, please feel free to just use the function to raise your hand, and then we'll go ahead and unmute you and let you talk. But as we go through each item, there will be opportunities to speak to you at that time. So first up is Sherry Hansen.
Hi, I am Sherry Hansen. I am on the board of directors with the Imperial Beach Arts Bureau. I've been with them for about 8 years. And I love it, and I'm very happy to have this whole group work so well with artists in our area.
Thank you, Sherry. And then next is Patricia Fisher.
I'm just here to say how delighted we all are for the convening of this first meeting. As cheerleader for the arts, the San Diego Visual Arts Network particularly, I have great hopes for what this position can achieve for the county. Thank you so much for being here.
Next, Michelle Lubin.
Hi there, Michelle Lubin. Also, like Sherry, I'm with the Imperial Beach Arts Bureau, and just excited and looking forward to learning more about what's going to happen.
Thank you. Next is Naomi Newsom.
Mute. Thank you very much. My predecessor's comments at how excited and proud we are to finally have our own presence at the county level in the arts. I also, as a public art consultant, would like to really encourage the county to consider making an ordinance for 1% for art. At least 1%, preferably 2%. Thank you very much for all your good work, and thank you to the committee for stepping up.
Thank you. That is the last person I see online. I don't know if anybody wants to speak in person. Okay. So that was it. So that was public comment for general public comment. As we go through each of the items, I'll also open it up again for public comment for each item if needed. So moving back to our presentation. Next on our agenda is presentations and training. So just a preface for you all, as a new commission, you get the pleasure of orientations and trainings. As Caroline says, we are a government entity and we love our laws. We want to be able to make sure you do what you can do and not get in trouble for it, basically, and that's what we're here for. So with that said, in the first couple of meetings, David will probably be doing, spreading out some of our orientation materials so that you're not spending 2 hours listening to all the legal stuff, and then the latter half will be more of our business. So that said, I'm going to turn it over to David to talk about Brown Act, our favorite topic.
Do we have any public comment on that item?
Let me check. So is there any public comment on our first presentation item, which is the Brown Act training? None.
All right. So as Zhang pointed out, I'm gonna be doing a series of these trainings for you, because there are all sorts of rules in place, and there are rules designed to protect the county, rules designed to promote public access to our proceedings, rules designed to make sure that we are providing good government. And the Brown Act is one of those things. The purpose behind the Brown Act is to cut down on backroom deals and to make sure that the public gets the opportunity to see what's going on in government and to have their voices be heard in government. So what will be happening is there's going to be some trainings offered by the clerk of the board. And those trainings, the next one of those is in July, but you all want to be maybe doing things before that. And so what I'm doing is breaking down these trainings and doing some for this committee here in advance so that you guys can start, so that you all can start taking on, making positive change in how the county deals with arts and culture issues. So with the Brown Act, again, we're trying to make sure things are open and making sure things are public and available for people to be able to participate in the process. And the way I'm going to describe, and with the Brown Act, you cannot have a meeting unless that meeting complies with the Brown Act. And so what I'm going to do is first talk about what a meeting is for the Brown Act, because there's all sorts of strange wrinkles and all sorts of ways people have tried to get around the rules, and all sorts of ways they've tightened the rules to help keep people from getting around the rules. And so I'm going to talk about what sorts of things you can or can't do in terms of your interactions with each other. And then we're going to talk about what happens at a meeting in terms of Brown Act compliance to make sure that everything is open for the public. So it's illegal to have a meeting unless it complies with the Brown Act. A meeting is described as a majority of this board talking about, discussing, or deciding an issue that's within this board's area of authority, that is arts and culture. That you cannot be talking about, with the majority of the board, you can't be talking about arts and culture unless you comply with the Brown Act. And that rule means you can't talk in a group, or you can't talk serially. So for instance, let me give you some ideas. So we can have 2 people here talking with each other, not a problem. We can have 3 people talking with each other. But if you have 3 people talking with each other, and then each of them talks with a different other member of this committee, you're pretty soon, at that point, you're going to have a majority talking about the same thing outside of the meeting, and that's something you can't do. Okay? 2, 3, 4 of you talking, that's fine, as long as talking about committee business, that's fine, as long as that 2, 3, 4 of you are real careful about who else you are or aren't talking about that way. Now, it's also not okay, for instance, for Zhang to say, oh, and I think Jim's going to vote this way, and I think Felicia's going to vote that way when she's talking to somebody else. If you have one person, because that's what's called a serial meeting. The serial meeting, that is, if a group of you are all communicating together, majority of you are all communicating together, even if it is using somebody else to communicate through, that's a problem. Now, you will notice that when Zhang has been sending out emails to you, she's been sending them out in a way so that you don't reply all and get all the committee members. That's because Zhang knows what she's doing, and the county has some systems in place to help make sure we're doing what we're supposed to do. It is okay for Zhang to survey everybody. as long as Zhang is not telling everybody, oh, this person's gonna vote that way, that person's gonna vote the other way, that person, third person's gonna vote this way. Zhang can collect information from all of you. So for instance, she surveyed all of you to find out your availability for today, right? That's totally fine. And you should assume that if Zhang is asking you a question, it is totally okay to respond because Zhang knows what she's doing. And again, you can talk in small groups about stuff. You just need to be careful that you're not talking collectively, that the groups aren't talking with each other outside of a meeting, so that we don't have a majority talking about stuff outside of the meeting. Okay? Now, what happens though? There are a few exceptions here. What happens if, for instance, everybody's invited to a conference for arts and culture leaders throughout California? Let's say there is such a thing. Okay? If that meeting is open for the public to attend, and even if the public has to pay to come in, you can all be at the same place, just don't talk specifically about county business. Don't have a majority talking specifically about county business. Again, small groups that are not a majority, you can talk with each other. What about locally? What if there is, say, an art reception? Somebody's new exhibit's opening, and you all want to go. Don't talk specifically about committee business. It's okay to talk about, yes, we do like this. No, we don't like this. No, we don't like this work of art. Yes, we do like this artist. No, we don't like our interactions with this artist. It's okay to talk about that. Just don't have a majority talking about committee business after that. Okay. And then we have the strange thing called social media. And all that stuff I said about majorities, that doesn't apply to social media. They simply have different rules for that. Okay? Because we all understand that social media communications work a little bit differently from communications in real life. So the way the rules in social media are, none of you should comment on each other's posts about committee business. None of you should like or thumbs down or retweet or share each other's posts about committee business. What you can do is, I'm sorry, I'm picking on YouTube because you happen to be here. Okay.
We allow you.
Okay. So Jim can post something about this upcoming meeting and how he feels about some item on the upcoming meeting on his Twitter feed or Facebook feed or Instagram feed, or or your social media of choice. Felicia should not like his post, share his post, or retweet his post. On the other hand, Felicia can post the same darn thing on her own webpage or social media, Facebook or Instagram or whatever. Okay? And so you can post your own content, just don't respond to each other's content. And that also means that you all don't have to be offended when your committee members onto your own to your online social media accounts. So there's actually kind of a good side effect of that, I guess. But you can post your own comments, and you can post your own posts. Just don't share, like, retweet each other's posts. That is the basics about what a meeting is. Then, if you can't have a meeting unless you're complying with the Brown Act, let's talk about what is involved. Now, first thing you have to do is have meeting times in places. We're going to be talking about that later when we pick when we're selecting how often and where and when this committee will meet. And you have to have an agenda. Now, an agenda must be posted 72 hours in advance. It has to be posted, by hand in certain places and also on the committee's website if you have one. And you'll notice that Zane takes care of, that function and, knows what she's doing about that, about how to take care of that function. The agenda has to talk about what's going to be discussed. If it's not on the agenda, it's not getting discussed, okay? It's got to be on the agenda in order to get discussed. And if you want something to be discussed on the agenda, talk with Zhang, talk with the committee chair, who you guys are going to be electing. But that is how you get items on the agenda. So the agenda gets posted, and the agenda needs to have all sorts of information. It needs to say where and when we're going to be meeting. It has to make sure that we're meeting in a place that can accommodate people with disabilities, that is ADA compliant. The nice thing about county buildings is you're going to get that. So county buildings happen to be good places to hold these types of meetings. So you're going, so you have to have ADA compliance, you have to know where and when you're going to meet, and you have to have the agenda. And I said 72 hours in advance. We usually try, here at the county, we usually try to do better than that. And we usually try to have it more in advance. But I don't know, you post it when, Thursday? Or Wednesday?
They got the email Wednesday and then the rest Thursday.
Okay, so Thursday for a Tuesday meeting, which means we beat the 72 hours, you know, by a couple days actually. But that's kind of more, this schedule is a bit more normal for the county. We try to be extra compliant in that regard. There are some things that are going to happen on the agenda. There's going to be a roll call. There's going to be general public comment. Again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that the public has a voice in that. Avoid the backroom deal. We talked about all of you kind of discussing, you know, about how you can't have a majority discuss committee business outside of the meeting. That's to make sure that we don't have backroom deals. It's to make sure that we have things handled here at a meeting, where they're supposed to be handled. At the meeting, you will have general public comment. Anybody can speak about something that is within the committee's jurisdiction, arts and culture related matters, for instance, or how the committee is doing business. It is okay to set rules capping how long people can speak. And a lot of places will do that, because if you have a big item and everybody can talk for a half hour, you're not getting out of here at any time soon. And you're not gonna, and it's gonna be harder for you to get anything done before you get out of here. But, you know, a lot of times people will do 2 minutes or 3 minutes or something, allow that kind of amount of time for people to speak. If somebody needs translation services, then we give them double the time under the rules, because it takes time for interpreters to do. So you have to give the public the chance to speak. Now, we've had some lovely public commenters this evening, all saying very nice things about this committee. That may not always be the case. You might have some people saying some very negative things about this. They may say them using very intemperate language. That is something that happens in public comment, and that is people criticizing their government. Get to do that. There may come a point, you know, people are speaking outside of their allotted time or things like that, where the speech becomes too disruptive, and then there may be something we can do about it. But there is a wide amount of leeway for people to criticize their government at these meetings. We need you all to be here. in case you haven't heard yet, it is important for you all to be here in person. There have been, there are some provisions in the Brown Act for how to handle remote. They are so cumbersome and so burdensome that they are not practically feasible right now. However, we've had a lot during the COVID lockdowns. There have been a lot of experiments with Brown Act procedures, and a lot of experiments with ways of doing meetings remotely that have increased public participation and made it easier, particularly for people who live far away from these meeting sites, to be able to make it here. And to be able to participate without having to schlep all the way here. There are a lot of bills going through the legislature right now looking to try to give groups more leeway to have commissioners and board members meet remotely. If any of those come through and they look like they're going to be feasible, we are going to revisit this issue with you and see what we can do to make that possible. We understand that making the commitment to showing up here in person can be difficult sometimes. And if there is a way for us to do this in a way that, that's going to be feasible, we'd like to make it easier for you to participate, not make it harder for you to participate. Okay.
So David, may I ask a question?
Sure.
So that means that if someone is out of town, then they cannot participate in the meeting, they can't call in, anything like that?
Right now, there are a lot of things that have to be done to make that happen, which are onerous enough that it becomes hard to do, involving posting notices at the location where the person is out of town, and allowing the public into whatever that location is, and allowing the public to provide public comments at that location. And so it is not really feasible right now for people to do this remotely. Our board of supervisors, they're not appearing remotely anymore. So it's got to be, so hopefully if some of this legislation passes that makes it easier for you all to be able to do things remotely, like I said, we will keep monitoring that legislation. And if we find, a way that's going to make this feasible, we'd like to, if we can. But, my job as the lawyer right now to go through all the rules and all the ways that life gets made harder by these rules. But, we will try to work with you to make this as easy as possible.
Follow-up question.
Yes, please.
So you're out of town,
Yes.
but you still want to see the discussion.
Oh, you can.
Is that allowed like any other citizen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, you absolutely can see the discussion. You can even, do
Publicly
what.
comment?
That's right. That's exactly where I was going. Yes, you can publicly comment. You can do everything that any other citizen can do. You just don't get to voting member of on the days that you are out of town and not here,
So there is the option of not being in it, because, the other thing I was thinking of is if you have like young children and you don't have, or you're a single parent family. So there sometimes may be reasons, like an emergency reason, that you just can't come, you don't have anyone to care for them. Then you just at that evening would have to basically recuse yourself. You would not be a voting member. You could do this option for somebody who's out of town, it's the same.
Yeah, and it's things like that hopefully will get the legislature to give you guys more flexibility so that it's easier for people with all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of situations to be able to volunteer and participate in government like this as best as they can. But yes, feel free to call in, feel free to watch online if something like that comes up, and you can have your say, you just don't get to have your vote. Okay. So there's general public comment on anything that's not on the agenda, but that's in the commission's authority. Then you also, with each item, before you can vote on anything, you have to give the public the opportunity to comment on those items as well. So yes, somebody can speak as general public comment, and then they can speak at each and every other item on the agenda. That means if you have a 10-item agenda, that means people will speak with you on all 10 items, whether you want to hear them or not. Okay? And if any of you have watched Board of Supervisors meetings, perhaps you have seen examples of this. And that is because the public has the right to have its voice be heard. We may be able to put together a consent calendar, sort of like what the board does, so that if they're non-controversial items, they can all be sort of lumped together and a single vote can cover all of them. That you know, depending on what our agendas are in the future, that might be an option. But in the meantime, you know, unless we're doing that, every item gives people an opportunity to speak. People get to show up here and be in the audience, and we cannot require them to identify themselves. Okay? You know, people can identify themselves if, you know, if we ask and they want to, but we cannot require people to identify themselves. We cannot require people to identify themselves if they want to speak in public comment. They also get to video record these meetings. They get to audio, people get to audio record these meetings. People get to publish their recordings of these meetings. Just as long as their video and audio recording is not interrupting the meeting with too much noise from the recording device or too much light from the cameras or whatever. We need to really be able to show that they're being disruptive to get somebody to not be able to record these meetings. And that is, there are all these discussions are going to happen open and in public. There are occasions where groups covered by the Brown Act body can go into closed session, that is discussing issues without the public present, and there are rules about that. I can't say that it'll never happen, but it is probably not going to happen that this committee is going to meet in closed session. That is probably not going to happen. The reasons usually involve litigation, which is handled by the Board of Supervisors, or personnel matters, which the committee doesn't really do, negotiations with real property negotiators. Well, that's also something that this committee is generally not going to be doing. You know, buying and selling real estate. So we are probably not going to be meeting in closed session, so you should assume that when we're discussing any item that is going to be discussed at a table like this, with anybody from the public who wants to be in here watching, with people watching on Zoom, with people watching who you don't know are watching, and with people maybe recording or even posting things on the internet. Open and public meetings, again, the idea behind the Brown Act is let's make sure that we are being transparent and being open to the public and making sure that the public has the opportunity to have its say. It's also good for all of you as committee members, because if there are no backroom deals, that means all of you get to vote and all of you get to have your say on these matters as well. A couple sort of related items. You may have some questions that come out about the Brown Act. You may have questions that come up about other legal issues or other various issues involving the committee. Then is your first stop, partly because some of these issues might be resolved without needing legal advice, simply because this is how the county does it. And partly because Zhang needs to know what's going on in terms of the committee. But yes, I am pleased to be working with you all and pleased to be providing the support that this committee needs from a legal perspective. I I will be doing a couple of the other trainings. Some other things that you're going to be learning about probably from me include rules about conflicts of interest, rules about the Public Records Act, because yes, when we start getting into documents and what documents are public, you're going to be, that is going to be something of some interest to all of you. And probably some, just discussion about a series of other sort of general laws that affect how we do business in the county. And one person who's also going to talk about some of those things is Zhang, who has the next item on the agenda.
So that said, first I just gotta check to see if there's any public comment on this item. This is the County of San Diego Arts and Culture related policy. Let me just check on Zoom. None. Mine will be short and sweet. We really want to get to the meat of business. You guys have these as attachments, so I'm just going to briefly go over them. Let me know. We have copies if anybody needs or wants them too. So. Yeah. So the first one is your reason to be. Without this, you guys would not have existed. The administrative code establishing this commission. That's the meats and bones of it. It's very basic. It's very straightforward. And the intent of that is the board of supervisors wants to establish the commission, but you as the commission are the ones that really would be establishing your bylaws and some of your priorities and things like that. So it's very basic. Here it is. It's going to be a 13-member commission, 10 appointed by the board of supervisors, and 3 youth appointed by the chief administrative officer. Right now, 9 are officially appointed. The 3 youth commissioners will be appointed on May 2nd, and then we are waiting one more commission. But for the most part, we are pretty much a fully seated commission, which I'm quite happy about. Not all of our commissions get to be so lucky to be quite so fully seated. So I think it just shows the interest and the support we have from our board on something like this.
Do the youth members vote as well?
Not at this meeting yet, but in future meetings, yes. So everybody will have equal voting rights. Their terms are a little different.
Yeah.
So the ones appointed by the board of supervisors you are there for the tenure of your supervisor's term.
One question was, what if a supervisor is no longer a supervisor?
You will continue to act until a replacement has been appointed. So they will be seated.
Is that different than what it says here in the term?
No, that's what it says.
It's what it says. We trust us. That was one of the first things we looked up. I called David immediately.
I just read it and said, or at such time as he or she ceases to hold office.
Yes, I think there's a vacancy. We are reading about some of the things
Right,
where.
there's a holdover provision also.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
It says that if you are, if you're in a position and there's a vacancy, and the supervisor's out, then you get to basically stay on until somebody new gets appointed. And that's sort of the default rule that we have for all our boards and commissions.
So a question then, let's be specific.
Yes.
We can anticipate that there will be an incumbent vacancy, I think around May 10th or something like that. I forget which district we're talking about. Could you remind me?
We'll have a vacancy starting May 15th.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And then, but the person appointed to represent District 4 stays in place until the new person?
Until the Board of Supervisors will be meeting on May 2nd to determine how they would like to handle that seat. And once they have determined that, we can give you further updates. But until that person comes in, and then they themselves in their office will then have to go through the same process that you guys were all appointed for every single commission. So.
Or if they're happy with you, they can just
leave it.
reappoint.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a lot of times for the first year or two will usually, not always, I can't promise,
Okay.
do it while they get the lay of the land.
Could you share that other policy with us? Because that's different than what.
I'll highlight it in here, I'll look through it, we'll look through it and let you know, exactly where it is. So that's basically all it says, and then the youth commissioners serve for 2-year terms. Nothing too crazy, quorum is a majority of appointed members, so, David has talked a lot about majority.
50% plus one?
50%
That's right.
plus one, that's all we need for quorum.
So today with 9 seated members, majority would be 5. If the 3 youth commissioners get seated on, May 2nd, then that bumps it up to 12 members, so a majority would be 7.
So as we start talking about the bylaws and voting for the temporary chairs and stuff, just keep that in mind.
We need 7 at the meeting to be able to take any action.
And to pass actions. That's basically just what the ordinance says, 2-page, pretty straightforward. The second part, the only thing we have really that's arts related at the county right now, as you recall, we haven't had an arts commission or an arts person for 20 years, is our board policy F23, and it talks about the inclusion of basically public art on certain county buildings. And I'll summarize it very, very briefly. We have the policy for new buildings that the county is building that is over 10 million, 0.5% of the budget will be going towards the public art. And they have a process in place. It's through our general services, which oversees the buildings and things like that. So I know it's about a 3-page document. That is a 1-sentence summary. I tend to be very short and succinct and open up for questions from that part. But I know policies aren't the most interesting, but that's basically what it says. So 0.5% of any new buildings the county creates, 0.5% of a $10 million or bigger building will go towards public art, not to exceed $500,000.
So saying this policy sunsets at the end of this year.
Yes, it does.
And so normally would the supervisors just move it forward, reapprove the policy for continuation?
Yes, so we have a process within the county. It's our sunset review process. Each group does it pretty much about the same, where they send it to the lead department. Right now it's under general services. General services and their staff reviews the policy. A lot of times it's a lot of updates. Laws may be out of date. They may want to update things to account for, let's say, equity or outdated language or non-inclusive language. So those are examples of things they change. But then once they put that through, it goes to a board meeting, and the board will approve and those changes or not as part of what we call a sunset package. That's one of many policies that have to go forward every year.
If the commission wanted to make any additions to that policy, is this an ideal time for that?
It would be, and if it's something you guys would like to discuss, it can be put on, I can put it on our next agenda, or whoever the chair is, we can discuss that with the chair to put on the next agenda, so we can do that, definitely. It helps that we have 2 board of supervisor staff here too, so they're aware. Yes, Renee?
I'm kind of a concrete person, so I'm gonna make an example to see if I've got it. Let's say we wanted to discuss increasing the amount allocated from 0.5% to 1%. We would ask to have that be on the agenda? Is that how we would do it?
Yes, what you would do is probably more broadly, I would probably recommend that you more broadly ask for discussion for amendments to board policy F23.
Okay.
And then that could be part of that discussion.
Okay,
We can
got
go
it.
through and
Thank you.
discuss multiple things instead of something so specific.
Okay.
I have a feeling your peers may have other parts of the policy they may want to address.
Okay, thank you.
And then I'll also look into that because I believe the 0.5%, there's a law or something, but I have to check. I don't remember the exact law, sorry.
Yeah, that would be helpful too. If there's a law that's like, this is how it is.
Yes.
We don't want to waste time talking about it.
Are you, and I think you will say yes, because but if you could indulge us for a while, that we could come and say, okay, I'd like to talk about this. Is this the right way to do it? Because you just framed what
I said,
what
Renee,
you said in a way that would be in like the legal language,
Yeah,
or, you know, so
that's really
we can
helpful.
do that.
What you can do, and what you can do, whether it's in response to public comments or whether it's something that comes up at a meeting that's not on the agenda, you can ask that it be added to a subsequent agenda for discussion. So,
For
yeah.
discussion, okay.
Mhm.
I do want to point out, like, for me at least, he's legal, you're gonna want to take his advice. For me, mine is more suggestions. I'll try to guide you as best as I can, but you make the decision in the end. I want to make that clear and put that out there. So, yeah.
Is this where we ask for something to be on new business, or we do that at a different point?
You can, let's talk about, we can probably do that right now, but we
Because
do.
we're under this item right now,
Yes,
right?
yes, so
Yeah.
so that is, I'm hearing from all of you that this is an item you would like on our next,
Right.
agenda.
What would be helpful for that also would be a summary over the last 3 years of what applicable.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
help.
we can definitely get a list of that from
Questions.
general services,
And
so-
what's coming up?
Yes,
Yeah.
we have quite a few, so.
Yeah.
And what I can do too is, besides me talking about and getting that list, I can also have general services come. So I have a feeling you guys may have more questions than I would be able to answer, and to that level of detail you want. So I can also work with general services to have their, chief or.
Would those then come up in a discussion, or would we then say, well, you know, I have a question about how you're, inviting people to submit? You know, how do you, like, what is the process of bringing on
Public art?
the artists to be considered?
Yeah.
You know,
So-
that's fair. So would that be in the discussion, or is that a question that I raised in preparation for that?
So there's two, I'll let David answer now.
So one of the reasons why Zhang was recommending that if we wanted to put something like that on the agenda, we don't just say go from 0.5% to 1%, we talk about policy as a whole,
Yeah.
is because it gives more flexibility to ask questions about the policy as a whole. Otherwise, if you start going to things that are not on the agenda, then it's gotta be next.
And then to address your question, if there are certain things you may want, and I'm having general services come in, go ahead and send me them ahead of time so that they can prepare a presentation and have that as part of their presentation also. So they may be able to answer your questions without having to.
It would be nice if they could anticipate it.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah. I'm sure some of these they've already anticipated, they get asked a lot from the community, but, so I'll go ahead and put that on, and then, just go ahead and email me if there are things, specific things you have questions on, or you may want general services to present on, and then I'll let them know about that.
Can I just ask one more quick question about the definition of public art in this context? Are we talking about a physical thing? Or could it be a public art performance or an installation that's temporary? Is that in there somewhere, a definition? I could read it myself, so I know it's there.
It technically is, but it's very broad, and
Okay.
it's not limited. I will say generally these are permanent pieces.
Okay.
They, in the past and currently, they are looking at permanent pieces, and not performance. So original artwork qualifying under this policy, so it's on, page 2 or 3 at the very top. May include but not be limited to sculpture, murals, reflecting pool fountains, handmade light fixtures, blah, blah, blah. But as you see, our language is very, but not limited to. But,
So, read this.
yeah. Thank you. So policies tend to be short, but they also tend to be bureaucratic. So feel free to send me as many questions as you have. I've had to read many of these policies. So I can try to read between the lines and interpret things for you as best as I can.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Right, and Zhang and I work together on a very, very regular basis, and so, yeah.
So that's board policy F-23, and I laughed a little bit the fact that Jim brought it up, because I was like, I literally told David, I was like, I wonder if anybody's gonna notice when it sunsets, and that was basically the first question that was asked, so, and general services is already aware that this commission has started and seated, and that they'll probably have questions on process.
Mhm.
So, and they've been extremely, supportive and helpful. That's basically item 4B. Those are mainly our two policies that kind of govern arts and culture. As you can see, it's not extensive. But those are the two that we have currently. But if you guys have any other questions just about that, just let me know. Any right now?
So one other question.
Yes,
So
Jane.
this is the only policy, a little unclear on that. So there's no other policy around the arts. So, and DGS doesn't oversee parks, do they? I mean,
No.
it's art parks.
So,
But that's not a policy, that's on a project basis.
So, and David will let me know if I'm speaking out of turn. Historically, our arts projects have been very spread out because we didn't have a central piece. Arts has their own piece. So when you walk through the waterfront park and you saw those statues, that technically was part of that project, but it's overseen by our Department of Parks and Recreation. And they usually handle their own, what we call our capital buildings and things like that too. They work closely with general services. But because they're such a big part and they have a lot of land and things like that, they kind of have their own processes, but usually aligned with general services. And then everything else, like the actual building that you're in right here, so any of the artwork or things you see in this building, was under the purview of general services. With me coming on, things are slowly transitioning to our office. And in the meantime, general services just meets me in and lets me know. So they let me know, hey, we have this new building coming up. Here's the art. Here's what we're planning to do for the art. Let us know, you know. And I've let them know that our commission is coming on board. They'll be making a decision. It's not so much me. So I don't want to make any changes into our commission. Kind of gets together and starts making their priorities, making those decisions, because what I say could change based on what you guys decide. So they know, they're on standby, and they're just waiting. So they check in with me every once in a while, give me updates, and then they're just waiting to hear.
Is there a policy though within parks around art or requirement or anything along those lines?
I don't believe so. I believe they follow the same policy, but I can ask them if they have anything they can share.
I realize this only applies to buildings, but I know there's extensive public art in
Yes.
county parks. So I'm curious what policy that's driven by, or if it's just on a project basis.
Yes, I will check in with them.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. So, next will be, that was
Just so I'm understanding the public comment.
Yes, ma'am?
Public had a chance to comment on the Brown Act,
Yep.
but not on this
Oh,
discussion.
I was saying at the beginning of the item.
Oh, at the
whether-
beginning,
yeah.
Yeah.
before you get into it, not after.
Right.
Oh, that's interesting. They may have heard something that,
I know.
Right.
Yes.
you do that on purpose. No.
If you do it at the beginning, there's no chance that you miss it at the end.
Oh, you got
Right?
it, you got it.
So next is our discussion item. So here is more where we stop talking, hopefully, and you guys are the ones that start talking and making decisions. First, as David said, I sent out a survey to see where, very fortunately, pretty much all of you can make this date and time, which I think is a minor miracle, frankly, that you're all here. But moving forward, we would like to know and let the public know of when our regular meetings will be. So I try to summarize what your decision points around these meetings will be. The frequency, so is it monthly, every other month, quarterly? And those are based off, I looked at all the other local arts agencies around here. Those are the frequencies they meet. And on the next page, I just realized I forgot public comment real fast.
Go ahead.
So let me check and see if there's any public comment on this before we move forward and do it. Don't see any moving. That's one. So once you guys decide the frequency, you will then have to decide day of the week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Like technically you can meet on the weekends. I don't think any of us would prefer to do meetings on the weekend. But that is technically also an option. Time, daytime, afternoon, after business hours, those are the kinds of things, as well as location. So I chose this place here because a lot of our commissions use this place. It's obviously set up for hybrid. We're used to use the equipment here and things like that. But things to consider about location is Brown Act accessibility. So any of our county buildings will be available. And I can obviously also do research on if you wanted a non-county building, what that would take, things like that. Hopefully, you guys can come to a decision today on what our future meetings will be, or at least when our next meeting will be. And then also to assist you in your discussion is a calendar of when all the other local agencies meet and how often they meet. So it's color coded because I couldn't find an easier way to do that. Most of them you'll see will meet every month. And I know that thing is blocking our, if I can, there we go. And down. You need to see yourself. These are the other local arts commission meetings. And I use that loosely. They all have different names, different terms. Some are just specifically public arts commissions. Some are more broad, and those kinds of things. But this is how they meet. What they usually do is they'll say the first Monday of every month, and Sunita says, first Monday of every month, we're going to meet at 5 p.m. And that's always going to be when our meetings are, barring if they don't have business or something like that, they may cancel their meeting. You'll see a couple of them have quarterly meetings, Escondido, National City. And I will say this is based off of what I got from their website.
Yeah.
So unless something's changed since I pulled them off their website, that could be wrong. And then some of them just do every other month, and they'll list it. They'll say we're meeting January, March, blah, 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 blah. Those are the varieties. Those are the variety of times you can see. And it is now up to you guys to discuss and decide what you guys would like best. So I can either keep it on this page, I can move it back to the other page about the decision points you'll need. It would help make decision points. I can go step by step. First with frequency might hopefully be the easiest thing for you guys to agree on, and then we can move on to the next couple.
To suggest, maybe if because we're a new commission, the quarterly seems a bit far apart, but a month can come very quickly. So my suggestion would be every other month, which gives time to maybe try to achieve what we said between one meeting, and a little bit, you know, and the frequency of getting to know each other, getting to know what we can do.
I like to have time to really study and drill down when I'm doing something that's brand new. And so I like every other month for that reason, because then I can really like look up some of these policies myself and or talk to you about what else should I look at and read it. My 2 cents.
Yeah, every month comes fast.
Yes, yes it does.
It's really like every 3 weeks, actually.
Yeah.
Question, about how long should our meetings last? 2 hours?
Again,
Hour and a half?
that is up to you guys. So I will say most of our commission lasts between 1.5 to 2 hours. A lot of them, depending on the discussion, if there's a controversial or something has a lot of input, sometimes we'll go past. Traditionally, we don't put an end time, we just put a start time. So, and I will.
It kind of matters when you're thinking about the time of day.
Yes, right.
Because now it's like switching hours, like completed.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's bad traffic hour, or
Oh,
people are starting to get tired?
No, it's just, you've worked all day.
Yeah, they're starting, okay.
Also, I take public transportation and transgendered, so it's a little dangerous for me to be on public transportation at night, so.
That's real talk. That's real talk.
Yeah.
So.
And I was gonna ask a question, how many people can get here earlier than after work? So how many people here can get here?
That's the big question.
At 4
Are we
p.m.
gonna go daytime?
How many people can get here at 4 p.m.?
The right day of the week.
I was gonna say, part of that depends on when.
Well, I'm just an average, if say if it was a Tuesday,
If it's
Right.
filled in,
yeah,
yeah.
to get here at 4 PM under it.
Yeah,
So we
seems
could
like that's
shoot,
flexibility.
in general, we could shoot for like a 4 PM. That would make, I don't know if that would make it easier,
Would that be too late?
yeah, or even, I'm just,
And part of why I'm asking is other organizations that I'm involved in, somehow all of their monthly meetings are in the first half of the month. So if it's the second half of the month that we're doing this, I have a lot more flexibility to be here at different times of day or different days of the week. If it's in those first 2 weeks, it's a minefield for me to try to figure out a recurring something.
So I just want to make sure, I don't know, David, do we have to vote on this? I was going to talk about the frequency,
Yeah.
because it sounds like, so let's talk about frequency first. It
Yeah.
sounds like,
We don't necessarily need to vote right now, but we can. If people want to vote on the next one, or if you want to sort of come to the package first.
We have consensus on every other month.
You know, can I chime in? We're brand new. We have, you know, you can see that there exist 2 documents in the whole of arts and culture. And we're going to create bylaws and other things. And I'm even an advocate to revisit some of the other documents we've seen today. My concern is that if we, and I will say that I know of arts commissions that meet bi-monthly, every 2 months, and they don't get a lot done.
It takes a long time.
It's eternal.
Okay.
And I mean, if a month is too much, could we go 6 weeks? I mean, can we modify how often we meet?
Or could we change? Could we, you know, if it seems like that's too little time, I mean, that maybe quarterly made more sense, do we have the option to vote and say, you know what? We're coming here, we're meeting, but we really could be doing this every 3 months or every 6 weeks, or I don't know.
so there are a lot of options. You could decide we could do regular meetings, and then we could also create special meetings, as long as we meet the Brown Act requirements of the 72 hours notice. If you guys, let's say we do bi-monthly, and then you decide to meet, actually, we do want to meet the month in between, we can
Or
just call that a
quarterly, and
special
we want to meet in
meeting.
between.
Yes. Then we can call a special meeting and notice it just the same. It's called a special meeting, but you're just meeting. You still have to vote, you still have to have quorum, all the same rules.
Right.
But that is a way of doing that.
So would that make sense to you, like, from what you're saying, is, are you, am I understanding correctly that you're thinking that sometimes it may be that even meeting bi-monthly, it's because I really appreciate all the preparation that has to happen before each. So I am perfectly happy. I was just thinking more at the beginning, we might need to meet more frequent. So for me, bi-monthly is frequent.
Boy.
No, because I know it goes so fast because of what needs to happen. So I'm also open to quarterly with special meetings. So it could be, you know, or I just don't want it to be too many meetings where we're not getting to them.
Well, let me complete my thought.
Okay,
I'm a fan of every month.
I see, okay, so.
I'm
okay.
advocating every month because
Okay.
we have a lot of stuff to do. We're kind of established, and my worry is that, you know, if we've only met 6 times in a year, how much did we accomplish?
And those meetings are gonna be longer, they're less frequent. So is there a middle ground where we lock in that it's every 2 months and we have a standing item on every agenda to discuss whether we need an additional meeting?
And that's a good idea.
So that every time we're in here, we can say like, yes, we actually do need to be back here in a month?
Yeah, I think that's great.
Yes, I can definitely do that as a standing item, where as part of every discussion item, you guys just vote if you need a special meeting. Or actually put it towards the bottom of the agenda, because that's probably when you figure out if you need a special meeting instead of the beginning. Okay, so it sounds like consensus right now is bi-monthly, with a decision point at the end of every meeting if you're going to be meeting the next month. All right.
And would we be holding that date just in case? You know what I mean?
I would recommend it.
Yeah.
Because to try to determine a date every month is with 13 people can be, like I said, I was surprised I was able to do it with you guys
So
this
just
time.
hold them all and then know that.
Yes,
Right.
just know that it's really just every other month that you'll be
There
meeting.
just in case.
and would you be okay with, I mean, I can see what you're saying, that if enough of us said, hey, not be able to be there, but the 8 of us are gonna go ahead and meet next month. So we can keep moving on certain issues, because I kind of agree in the beginning, at least, we may need to meet a little bit more often.
I almost feel like we need to plan a special meeting for May, just because we're,
Yeah.
you know, we just, and maybe we'll need a few months in a row, but then we can.
We get to figure out what the speed needs to be.
So for now, I'll say bi-monthly, so that's your first one. The second one that you will need to determine is day of the week and time. But I think you guys had started talking about time, and I've heard 4 p.m., but I know it also depends on the day of the week, so that's why they're gonna go a little bit hand in hand, day of the week and time, because you may be able to make 4 one day, but not another.
Do any commissions meet just like during the day, or is that an option for anybody during the workday?
Yes, we do have, or I don't know if that's a question
Sometimes my
for
nights
you.
are busier than my days, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
I'm available during the day, but I mean,
Yeah,
I don't
me
know.
too.
I don't know everybody
I
else.
can keep doing a day.
I think I know my work, they're a bit concerned about the time it's gonna take, but if I could at least get a good chunk of work done before, so like meeting it here, if it might be a bit, I'm happy to do. If I'm the only one, then I have to.
Well, given that we're driving from such disparate locations, I mean, I come from Camp Pendleton basically, but I'm cool. But I like the idea of a daytime meeting. I think we're fresher, you know, it might be
Would
easier.
2 be okay? Would you be all right with a 2 p.m.?
Sure. Anything earlier.
Your public transportation concern when it's,
That's tough for me, because
if it were earlier in the day, would that work better for you? And I'm thinking right now, we're daylight savings, but what about in the winter?
It's gonna be dark.
It'll be dark,
Yeah.
yeah, so 2 o'clock might work better.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, because I was thinking, I was like, right now, it's like 6 p.m. I was thinking about the winter. So,
Yeah.
I guess like, probably 2 or 2:30 would be better, because I still have time to get home, lie down and stuff.
We'll always have youth on the board, so.
I will point out, and you can always change depending on who's seated at the time, youth may include high schoolers. So currently, we do not have any high school youth on this board, but I will point out that we may in the future. And most of them will not end school till usually 3:30.
Could we change it?
Yeah.
If that future thing happens? Okay.
Jim, that puts you driving.
This is not a lifetime decision.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I'm thinking.
You know, even after a month or so, if it's,
Yeah.
especially if people that commute far, if it makes it really hard for you, I'll just be honest and tell us, so we can,
The only
try to make
yeah.
change.
And I'll put in, the only reason we try to make it regular, because it's easier for the public, you know? Technically, you could change it every single month. I strongly don't recommend that. But, the reason we do this is so that it's easier for the public to know when we're meeting, and they're always prepared, instead of trying to guess when we're gonna meet. So there's a little bit of that transparency. So, like, if you want to change it, a recommendation I would say is like maybe revisit at the end of every year, if you can still continue to meet at the same time, especially if we have quorum issues or something like that.
Is 2 a good compromise for you?
You know, I'm thinking too, we have a member from Fallbrook also, I mean, 2, whatever, 2 or 3 or whatever works,
I like 2.
You like two?
So we're at 2, everybody okay?
Yeah, sounds
And
good.
if the day of the week, like Tuesdays, I wouldn't be able to do it too, but other days, probably. So I
No
think
Friday.
that's the next thing is.
Yeah, no Friday.
How about
No
Wednesday?
Friday.
How about
No
Wednesday?
Friday.
Let's see, can we see the calendar again during the week?
Wednesday.
I can do one. Can we all agree not
We
Friday?
Yeah.
Why is it?
And you said the back half of the month, right? Isn't that what you
That's
said?
gonna be much better for me, but that's.
We could, go ahead.
Why are these meetings, were you just trying to show us the frequency of people's meetings? I mean, we don't.
Yeah,
Also,
examples.
I mean, depending on what you are all involved with and things like that, generally, we try not to conflict with another, arts agency meeting. You can, that's your decision.
Right.
So I also just wanted you to be aware of what else is going on with it throughout the county, because we represent the entire county.
Well, what if we looked at the 3rd Wednesday at 2, and we would not be conflicting directly?
Would that work? Is that too close to theirs at 4?
Yeah. We're virtual meetings too, so the public can
Yeah.
actually and go to the meeting.
3rd Wednesday.
Wednesday is
So it's the third week of the month, Wednesday at 2.
Right here, at this building?
That's the next decision.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Like I said, I don't decide anything, I just implement. So we just guide you as best as we can.
I'm looking at board of supervisors, schedule, we don't, we need to worry about conflicting with those meetings at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday?
We rarely do on a Wednesday, just don't choose a Tuesday. Yeah. Land use are pretty straightforward.
Every other month, okay.
That's
The third Wednesday?
Yeah. I will say usually every once in a while they do get, and I will let you know if our meeting conflicts with a, Wednesday that will run long. But it also will depend if you're running, if you're meeting here or you're meeting somewhere else. This room is usually, will hopefully be open. That's another thing I have to make sure, like, if where we're meeting, what rooms are available. For Wednesdays, we will always avoid, let's say, the chambers, the room downstairs across from the chambers where, that's usually overflow, whoever, for example. So that would be something that's just a technicality. Once you find a location, I will figure out the room for you guys.
Okay.
Third Wednesdays at 2, is that what we're at?
Yes, third Wednesdays at 2.
I would also say, how about next month we meet, and then after that we do the other.
The other one, sorry?
Then we start the alternate,
Yeah.
right? That's kind of, that would give us our next meeting, and then we could.
I think that should be okay. Is that okay?
That'd be May
May
17th.
May 17th
Yeah.
at 2.
July, September,
Yeah.
Or would we want
June.
to have that be a special meeting?
That's a special
And
meeting.
then June, because then
June,
we skip
yeah, then we
July,
have 3 meetings
August.
in a row, we can get a lot of this administrative stuff done. If we have 3 months of meetings in a row, I think we can get a lot of this administrative stuff done. And then maybe go to every other without having a special meeting.
Saying the policy regarding absences for commissioners, is it 3 absences in a row and you're off the commission?
I have to check on that. I don't believe.
That's how I read it, but.
I was just curious. We need to
And
make sure
also,
that
if you,
we don't create a schedule that automatically puts people out.
yeah,
I don't see anything, and I don't recall reading anything.
it was here.
It's the draft bylaws.
It's a draft bylaw.
Yeah,
so-
3 in a row or 1/3 of regular
So-
scheduled meetings.
So I will say those draft bylaws are based on, that's something else you guys are voting on.
Right, so you're gonna have some leeway to change some of them.
Yeah, so if you notice, the second I got asked, I just looked at the ordinance, because right now that's the only thing
Yeah.
governing this commission. Until the board of supervisors also needs to accept their bylaws. So there's nothing currently about that, and that is also something you have may decide that you don't want to have that bylaw, so. And that's why David is here, to tell you what you can and cannot get rid of in the bylaws.
But right now, we are under, Article 3W
Correct.
rules.
Yes.
And I read it the same way
Yes.
that you did,
Yes,
which
so,
is,
it's 804,
yeah,
she's referencing section 84.804 vacancies.
yeah, and item 5.
5, item 5, absence for more than 1/3 of the regular scheduled meetings in any 12-month period or 3 consecutive meetings. So as far as I understand it, David, you can correct me, does that also include special meetings?
Regularly scheduled meetings,
Oh.
so no.
Or 3 consecutive.
Regularly
scheduled
Yeah.
meetings.
So you would have to
Okay,
miss
good
the
point.
bi-monthly meetings, but if you miss a scheduled meeting and 2 bi-monthly, that's all.
Clarify. I have 30 days.
Bylaws?
Yeah,
No, in the.
it does say
in the
3
policy,
consecutive
1/3 of
meetings.
regularly scheduled
No,
meetings,
Oh,
or
the
3
ordinance is
consecutive
for 3
normal.
consecutive
Yeah.
meetings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. The ordinance is what's gonna be governing everything.
No, keep reading. It says, I'm sorry,
Yeah, please.
if you keep reading, it says, it sort of clarifies, and it says, in 1 12-month period or 3 consecutive regular meetings, Okay, so what
And
you said
special
was
meetings are not
special
regular.
meetings are not regular,
Right.
okay.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, fair. I just want to recap and make sure, remember everything correctly. Third week, Wednesday, 2 p.m. May will be our special meeting, and our next regularly scheduled meeting will be in June.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question for you guys is location.
Sure.
Here?
No.
Where would you like to be?
I think that we should, I would, have consider, annual basis or different parts. Including North County, possibly in the East County as well, and then also, I think we need to decide all that right now, but I would say, looking ahead, I would hope that we.
Do we need to meet, I'm assuming we need to meet in a county facility, is that correct? Oh.
It's easier, but you don't need to.
Okay.
We could meet in the same, like, we could meet in
But
the,
moving
San Diego
around
County
is
Library in
challenging.
Sonita
Oh, yeah,
Springs,
yeah.
right?
Right.
County building.
But it doesn't have to be county, it just has to be ADA compliant.
Right.
And willing to let us meet there at 2 o'clock on a Wednesday.
You guys are all portable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully. We're getting
With
there.
that whole super setting, I mean, moving around that much, if you moved around 4 times a year.
No, I thought you said 2 times, one
You know,
or two,
I would,
two
I
times.
don't, I'm not ready at this point to define how many times it would be. I would say it would be a goal, for a countywide commission to have meetings throughout the county, and we can look at that as we schedule.
Well, we also need to be cognizant that other county staff, depending on our agenda, will be popping into our meetings, so.
Right.
Yeah. So for now, I'll say it'll be at the County Admissions Center, and then we will decide pretty much on a case-by-case basis, like to move to a different location. I will say that, well, we're meeting bi-monthly, so that'll be enough time for me to scout a second location.
And it might be easier to do the special meetings as another regular one, so that everybody generally knows when the regular.
In California,
And
state
where and
organization meets throughout the state, I'm sure it's a logistical thing we can consider out.
Did we reach consensus on having a May 17 meeting?
Yes, that'll be the
And then
special
a
meeting.
June 21st?
Yes. For now, they will both be at this location. I will let you know. I have to check room availability, and then I will let you know.
If it's this room,
Yeah, but it will be this building.
it'll be this building, all right.
And then you guys also won't have the weird quirk about me trying to let you out late at night either. So,
Do you, I meant to ask you this earlier, now that we're getting to decisions. Will you send us all meeting minutes to approve? I didn't see that on the regular agenda item. Do we approve meeting minutes
Yes.
and all
Yes.
of that? Okay.
it wasn't on this agenda because.
We didn't have a meeting.
We didn't have.
Right on.
So, yes, but, they will usually go out in the packet at least 72 hours ahead of time. That's also the other reason why we, as staff, like to give a lot of leeway. Because
Okay.
depending on your discussion items and the attachments, it could be quite a lot of literature to do before your meeting.
Okay.
Okay, well, that was actually simpler than we thought it would be. So, that's the first discussion item. This one is our draft bylaws. So I will make a comment before I check for, public comment real fast. This is only drafted because of the structure outlined in our board policy that asks, like, we have to have these articles for all our courts and commissions. That said, we will see if there's anything else, and so most of it is pretty much flexible for you guys to change, and we will let you know what can or can't change, or if you change this, it may also mean you have to change the ordinance and those things. So we'll guide you through that. But we did want to have an outline for you to be able to at least look at and start discussions instead of a blank piece of paper, to start with. But I saw a hand up, so there is public comment, Patricia, Fisher. Yep.
Hello, yes. I'm glad that you explained about the idea that it's just a draft document. But under duties and responsibilities, I do hope that you will look at that extremely closely and make sure that you're adding some of the things that were talked about that were possibilities for the commission to cover. For example, promotion of the arts, which is not, it's sort of subtly hinted at, but not very directly mentioned. And I think there's quite a few other things that will come up under those duties and responsibilities when you talk about, what sort of things you actually want to achieve. Thank you.
Is there a time limit in terms of when we must finish this work?
No, but it does govern your commission.
Sure.
So without it, there are things such as you technically don't have a chair. And you won't until these bylaws are passed. And is there a limit in how often we can meet without?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
I don't believe there is a limit on how often you can meet, but the sooner you can get this framework done, the better. Remember that you are setting some of the parameters within the parameters set by the board. You're setting the parameters for this commission, and these bylaws, whenever this committee approves them, are also going to have to be approved by the board before they take effect. That process can take a while, depending on when, like there's usually about a month period when the board can recess during the summer. It may take, it takes some time because the board is also covered by the Brown Act, and people have to put items together and put together board letters and, and board packets for them, and, all the public noticing such as well. So when you're done, they're not done. They're only done once the board approves them.
Right.
And to give you a little more background also, consider these also fairly high level. They're a little more detailed than the ordinance, but they are still fairly high level. So if you're thinking of things that David mentioned before, like how long public comment can speak, that wouldn't necessarily be in these bylaws. And the reason behind that is these will have to be approved by the Board of Supervisors anytime you make a change. So like David said, that's usually at least a month or two, depending on when you guys meet in comparison to when the board meets. Because I have to pull together the package to present to the board and brief the board, things like that. So as you can see, why some of these are bolded is 1 and 2 and 5 is language usually taken directly out of our ordinances, and it's just very standard, very vague, basic language to give you as much flexibility as you can. Patricia mentioned Article 3, Article 4, and Article 6. Those are the ones you may want to concentrate and look on, because that's where you're going to have to make decisions. You can change anything in any of these, and then we will just make it work if we have to change the ordinance or something like that. But a lot of the 1, 2, 5 is pulled from our standard languages. It's pulled from your ordinance. That's where the duties and responsibilities, I think, also came from. We took some of the language from the ordinance and put it in there. Officers are, right now, I think it's just chair and vice chair or co-chair. You guys may decide there should be more. You only need a chair. There's a lot of variety there, and things like that. So that's just a little bit of background to kind of set the stage for your discussion. And then I'll just open it up if you guys have questions on it.
One question that I had, in Article 4, D, it says within 30 days of a vacancy. If we're planning to meet every 2 months, do we adjust that to say at the next regularly scheduled meeting or something similar to that?
That is an option, or it could also mean when this is triggered, you have to have a special meeting within 30 days. So for an example of that is during the COVID, when they allowed us to meet virtually, we had to have a legal saying at each meeting, but it had to be every 30 days. So sometimes we had to have special meetings to bring that provision. So you can either change it to the next regularly scheduled meeting, you can keep it at 30 days, and then know that you will have to have a special meeting to meet that. Those are the options.
One question, so once the bylaws have been passed, and let's say in the future you want to make some type of amendment, we could always do that, right?
Yes.
You can do that, but it will
I know,
affect,
I
it
know.
can't take effect until it gets approved by the Board of Supervisors. Yeah.
So my question about duties is, will there always be a county staff person at our meetings
Yes,
to help us?
yes, that would be me.
Okay,
Or
someone
whoever-
like you.
Yeah, someone like me.
Okay.
And then depending also on what project or something, like I said, we can always bring in additional staff person or subject matter experts, on that.
So this is why you're saying, we really just right now, even though this does talk about officers like a secretary or whatever, right now you're just saying we need maybe a chair and a vice chair or a co-chair.
Mhm.
Because you'll be taking notes, right?
Yes. Meetings are recorded. Yes, we do.
Thank you.
Article for you right now.
We discuss whatever.
So the one that jumped out to me was under Article 3G, apply for and administer grants from all levels of government, private sources for carrying out the functions. So I don't see that as our duty to apply for or to administer a grant, right? That would be, yeah. So, what the intent was, maybe of that for,
That language came directly from the ordinance, I believe, right? And
I'm
there are-
sorry, what?
808.
808.
Verbatim.
And yes, you are gonna have staff in assisting with that, and also, while this commission is authorized to apply for grants, above a certain threshold, and it's a pretty low threshold, it's the Board of Supervisors that gets to make the decisions whether to accept the grant.
so we would actually apply, this commission would be applying directly for a grant?
Although,
You may.
well, yeah,
You
although
may.
we are probably gonna more or less tell staff to apply.
I got you, but this commission would actually be the applicant and the awardee of, I got you.
So I have having written successfully a grant, more than one. My concern about this is, administration of a grant. Administration is usually, in my experience, a one-year process. Because, not just because of, the day-to-day we could maybe handle, but there's an accountability portion. We might not be here. Okay, so this would be staff. Got it.
Staff would then have to let the next commission know their responsibilities.
Okay, so along the way, horrible to do the accountability part at the very end. So our administration would include accountability features as we're going through the fiscal year or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe what we'll have to probably do is create the committees along the way.
There we
So
go.
if you three are good at grants, then you would do that. And
Yeah.
then when it's time for you to leave, we bring somebody else on. And that way, we're not all worried about that, or even the bylaws. At some point, we can all have input, but people who have that gift can work on them.
A reason to think carefully about whether and how you structure committees is that if they're, permanent committees, those committees will also be subject to the Act, which means committee, two people talking outside of a potential problem. So, you know, if you're doing committees, you probably want to make sure they're a large enough size committee that you can.
So, okay, then, thank you, that was helpful. And,
And it's an example of how you'll be hearing the,
no, yeah, you can't, watch out, right, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Process.
has
Then get
the
to the
county hired a county grant writer to help with this stuff?
Yes, I'm gonna say tentatively yes.
Okay.
Within our office, we do have a grant is to kind of, right now, one of her duties and responsibility is to compile and see where all the grants are, see possibly if there are opportunities depending on what the commission asks and things like that. And then we, as staff and council, will also we'll kind of also monitor and filter that to see like, hey, we really can't do this. As a commission, we don't meet the requirements, so let's try to filter that out, those kinds of things.
So what if we knew that, just from other work that we were doing, that there were nonprofit organizations that probably would be awarded a federal grant under certain whatever? Can we use county resources to help that nonprofit? Or do we just have to tell that nonprofit, we think this could work for you, why don't you look into it?
So this area is a little vague. My suggestion at this point, I feel the need to do, let's say, present a grants workshop to help train nonprofits.
There we go, yeah.
And help them guide through general grant processes, would be my recommendation. At this point, we don't, the role of that person would not be to work with individual nonprofits. Per se. There are other organizations in the county, like I know the small business associations are usually who, get referred to help and assist with those things. But the grants person would be probably happy and willing to do like a general training of tips and things that she's gone through. And because I know that is something we have heard from the community, like the need to help artists.
So that could be like a workshop that we, one of the.
Yeah, I don't think the county's put one on in a really long time either, so that's a great idea.
So when I read these duties and responsibilities, they all get to some bigger issues about what our role is, like outreach to the community or planning or engagement on a larger scale. And some of these get real specific. So I'm wondering, as we're looking at these bylaws, do we want to think about rewording some of them so that they're more broad, and how we actually get to engagement, and how we get to outreach, and how we get to planning are more strategies and more tactical kind of things. But I feel that some of these are kind of in the same bucket, they're circling around the same issue, when actually rewording them into some bigger, more encompassing bullets about, we engage with the public, because we part of, it's a big county and we need to know about it, but specifically study and evaluate equity, it almost gets too granular to me. And it feels like we need to get bigger. And say.
Wait, what do you mean by bigger?
Make us think about our role at a higher level rather than being more specific, because otherwise you'll get a laundry list of lots and lots of tactics. And actually it's all encompassing around the idea of, we engage in outreach, we go out and see things. You just go out and see, right? And then how you might do that may be more specific, but you don't want to put all of that in here and, under.
I agree, you don't.
So I was just thinking of I'm seeing this, kind of fresh, but spending some time with how these are worded and getting them at a little higher level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, guys?
I think, but to me, I'm sorry,
Go.
I was gonna say that even looking at, so I at first thought, actually, this is pretty broad, but now I was thinking, well, it's broad in the sense of like connecting to people. But
Yeah.
I'm also interested in seeing a diverse range of arts and cultures. So it's not just about who's engaged, the who's engaging, but the what we're engaging with. And even though they're related, so that, I think maybe that would help.
Yeah, lift it up a little
Yeah.
bit.
I think, on section 1, or Articles 1, 3, and 6 of this document, I think are where we kind of need to focus our energies. And I think the challenge is, how do we make that happen? Do we pull together a subcommittee to work on this between now and the next meeting in May? Or do we want to just wait and hash this all out in May? But I would encourage us looking closely at those 3 sections.
The duties.
Yeah.
Just had a technical question about the degree to which we're empowered to remove things that come from the ordinance as opposed to adding additional things. So I've heard a mix of both.
As long as it's in the ordinance, those are the rules governing this committee, whether they're in the bylaws or not.
So I'm gonna add on, that means you guys will also have to look at the ordinance and propose changes to the ordinance if you're changing something that's in these bylaws that came from the ordinance.
I think this is our first course of action, really, looking at these 2 things.
Now, I also want to point out, along the lines of more disappointing news, I'd also like to point out that we talked about how if you change the bylaws, they need approval by the board. And the board can do that in 1 meeting. For a change to the ordinance, there has to be, ordinances require 2 meetings and then a 30-day period before they go in effect. Two Board of Supervisors meetings. So this group would have to agree to changes. Then there would have to be a board meeting at which the board voted on those changes. Then there would have to be another meeting at which the board voted on those changes. Then it would be which would probably be at least 2 weeks later, and then another 30 days after that. So if you're looking to change the ordinance and you're looking at timetables, you should understand that that will take longer than simply changes to the bylaw.
You can, however, continue your work as long as it does not conflict with the existing ordinance before it changes.
Correct.
Yeah, this is not, you have to wait 3 or 4 months before you meet again. You just can't do anything in conflict with the existing.
It looks like our next meeting should be just focused on this.
That's kind of where I'm leaning towards.
Because,
This is the work.
This is the first work.
yeah.
And there will be, more training at the next meeting. There are more rules that you should know about, but.
So my understanding, what I'm hearing is you guys would like to table this to, look at for the next meeting.
Right, have a copy of the ordinance, and then we can all go.
Yeah, it's in the.
So, yeah, so that's what, everybody take a chance to look at this and make notes before the next meeting that you have, and it'd be anything little, like, I noticed that gender words in here, that I think be something like that, or something more, about rules, so just whatever you think, try to make notes before that, so when we get here, we already have some ideas, so we can.
Following on that too, yeah, if there's something that seems like it could be different or worded differently, then it also helps me to have an example. So for example, like instead of, maybe wording it and adding something like this and, throwing that out. So it's nice if we're thinking of something else to have an idea of, put some suggestions out there, like.
So here are those, we could add, anything that's in the ordinance, that's in the bylaws, if we just leave it like that, we can add things to the bylaws. So if we, the most expeditious route would be, unless we're really problematic, don't change anything that, the ordinance.
For now,
That's the
Yeah.
most expeditious route, I'm not
Oh,
saying
I
that's the best
agree.
route, I'm just saying that would be, that's
Yeah.
the easiest route.
As long as it's legal.
Yeah.
As David, as like I know David's chomping at some like.
Hamburgers,
Any decisions we make supersede.
So, I said, when I introduced myself, I said that's enough for now. I'm also an RN with 30 years of experience dealing with, not putting yourself into a box with your bylaws, because the government will fight you if you do, and then you don't follow them. And so that's just my word of caution. That is, that's why I was asking you, what do you mean by that? By when you said I want it broader, or I want in there, you know what I mean? I want to make sure that we really look these over, and that we follow the law and try not to exceed the law unless there's some compelling reason why we should, because the law will kick us in the butt. Basically, been my experience.
David is here to help.
Thank you so much.
I don't want to belabor this too much, but something that would be helpful when we take this up at the next meeting, I think, is the degree to which we would be able to essentially just change the first line under duties and responsibilities to something in the realm of the commission shall have powers and duties including. And then that way, we don't need to necessarily have an exhaustive list written explicitly into the bylaws, and it's not phrased in a way that
that's
it's
what I
like
was
closing
concerned
off
about.
other things that we might want to do that might come up 6 months from now or 6 years from now, or whatever it is. And again, like that can be part of.
We do like to use the words including but
But
not
not
limited
limited
to quite a bit.
Right.
So, or not other duties that's assigned, but that could be another
Mhm.
for you to get more,
If that helps us
Yeah.
not get bogged down in trying to make an exhaustive list of
Yeah.
everything that we may ever.
Yeah, right.
Great idea.
Right.
And something to point out about the duties and responsibilities is, while you guys may decide later on to have strategies and priorities, this is a way also to point out and kind of make sure the commission knows, like, hey, these are the things we should focus on, but
Yeah.
not limited to, and gives you an opportunity to decide, you know what, this isn't really one of our duties and responsibilities, we have limited resources, we need to focus on that. So that's something else to think about when you're, looking at changing the duties and responsibilities.
I have a question, because the last item under, Article 3 is, grant funding, monies. Within the county structure of commissions, do any of the existing commissions have a budget?
Civil service does. I would be shocked if the planning commission doesn't.
The civil service is a special commission, I guess clerk.
Yeah.
So we have two, they are review and, civil, so it's our clerk, our Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, which has their own, they're structured a little different, and Civil Service Commission. And I'll tell them both at the same time because they're structured basically the same. Those boards actually have direct power to appoint the head of that department. So they're not, I wouldn't call them advisory in intent. They have their own powers. They are, they're structured very differently. So those boards have direct power over the heads of that department.
They're set up in our charter to be independent,
Independent.
specifically designed to be independent, and in some cases even independent of the board.
Yes.
So,
And the intent of that is because of the work they do, is intended to make sure that there's no bias, there's no issues, those conflicts, things like that. So that's how they're structured. So technically, yes, those two. All other commissions come out of whichever department they sit in. So for you guys, it would be the Economic Development and Government Affairs, and I would have to request money if there are certain projects and things. Department or staff members.
What's the cycle of budgeting for this county?
We are back in the middle of it, so I'm gonna try to be as concise as possible because I came from finance, so. Technically, officially, we release our budget in May, and the board votes on it in June. Votes, and I should say adopt. So we have hearings and things like that. Unofficially, the planning process starts back in January and February. So if that is something you're interested or something about, I can go into a lot more detail than you probably will ever want to hear about our budget. But technically, the process, departments have to start putting together requests, do all those things.
In January.
In January.
And is it an annual budget?
Yes, it is an annual budget. Technically, they approve for 2 fiscal years, but they have to approve annually.
Oh, it's a two-year budget.
It is technically a 2-year budget.
And you can make changes at the first year.
And sometimes in the middle.
There are, we have ways of doing it in quarterly adjustments or individual board lists. There's a lot of nuances depending on what you guys would have to ask me specifically, and I can tell you what the best avenue would be for it. But the general budget would be released on May, adopted in June. The planning process starts in January, February, internally.
And what is the county fiscal year?
July 1st to June 30th.
Okay, thank you. So we're out of that, we want money window for the next fiscal year.
Unless we go mid-year.
Unless we
You're
go
saying that
mid-year.
there is the option.
There's mid-year, the budget is not adopted yet. So in May, when the budget is released, it's
right.
technically a draft
Right.
budget. The board hasn't adopted yet. And then in that month timeline, we have community meetings, the board will have hearings. Also, we are legally required to have hearings. I believe they're set in June. I don't remember the exact date. You have to look at our calendar. But it's usually around the second week of June. They have about a week or two of public hearings and public comment period, and then they adopt the budget. So nothing is set until then, and then you could technically say nothing is even set then, if you really wanted to, per se, because you're allowed to make changes here and there. It's just harder. It takes more of a vote of the board, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
But.
Good to know. And if we were to oversee, like this item G talks about, grants and things like that, we're still advisory at that point. We're not a program-based commission.
No,
correct?
we're not.
If we were, at what point would we switch into a program-based commission? By what kind of action?
I'm gonna defer to David.
That would probably require a change to the ordinance, from the Board of Supervisors, to grant authority, although there is while this commission may not, may require extra in order to, become a programmatic thing, the department. Okay.
Thanks, David.
Sure.
Yes, the department already exists as a program, and my
Yeah.
position already exists to oversee arts and culture program.
Right.
Like, Jim, you're kind of answering the question I was going along that line. So this commission applies for a grant. We receive a federal grant to do a countywide art study. Check gets written to the county of San Diego.
And approved by the board.
Approved by the,
Right.
so the.
And then what it would be is that money would be put into our Office of Economic Development and Government Affairs with usually earmark and language to say specific for this.
And then you would, then the county would need to spend the money according to the necessary use, but we have no oversight of how you spend it.
Advisory.
I will say generally, staff people like me in departments that are overseas, that have advisory boards, very rarely go completely sideways from the commission, unless the commission has started going down a path that maybe not legal or things like that.
So
I'll keep it at that.
So if we wanted to, okay, so from your question
Yeah.
and your answer, this Article 3G, I am hating that word, administer grants. That's our responsibility, hating it. So could we take it out and not be in violation of something else?
It's in the ordinance.
Well, okay then.
So but that is what we could change.
Yeah, you could propose changes to the board, and the board can
Yeah,
adopt
that
them
could
or
take
not,
for
but-
God knows how long. Okay, got
But
it.
that also speaks that if we get a grant, we are administrating it. Hello?
Yeah, so how come we can't say?
Maybe it's not
It's a deal.
removing it, it's adding things in our bylaws to talk about.
Ah,
And
there
what's
we
the
go.
what's the
There we go.
definition of administering a grant?
Yeah.
That's
It's
pretty
not
vague.
necessarily.
It doesn't mean we have to do every piece of paperwork.
No.
No,
It's-
Final report.
but we have participation in it.
You could say advise in the administration.
I think it's worth having something, whether it's extra bylaws, because this goes into legal issues, and so, and I don't want something over my head if I know I can't commit to it. So I think in a way, it could be just a matter of adding, that the commission is supported in the administration of these things by,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
including and not limited to.
Yeah.
I think that's on the first, just, yeah, we can look at it.
Yeah, that's the way to do it.
So this is off topic, but you know, we're a new commission. We have nearby commissions that have been around for over 50 years, like in LA, et cetera. And there is the opportunity for, or the need for education, and there are conferences like put on by Americans for the Arts, or there's this very kind of a group. If we were to determine that we wanted some continuing education in some regard, should we alert you to that so that you can plan for it in your budget or make that request?
Yes.
Okay.
So, there's a couple ways you could go about it. You could say generically, and then it can come back with a list of options for you. If there is something specifically you guys already want and you all agree, you would all have to, well, I should say, a majority of people here would have to agree that they want that specific training, then I would look into how to make that happen.
Is it also possible, like, I'd be really interested in, meeting members of the LA County Commission, or attending, well, we can actually, I don't know, maybe we can actually get on, watch one of their.
I'm imagining so.
Yes, you can, as long as you're not, as long as a majority of this group does not talk specifically about your
What we're
business.
doing.
Yes.
Oh, about our business, but we could just say, we just like to
Oh, yeah.
see what you've done, what your, like, what is.
We don't have to go all the way to LA.
Oh, we can
San
read out
Diego
the-
is right here.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, I
large
think
and it's
the
been around a
interesting
long
are
time.
Countywide commissions.
If you have contacts in those
No,
commissions,
that's what I
there's
mean, our
nothing that
county.
keeps you from calling them or reaching out to them individually, or talking to them and learning about how they do their work. There's nothing to keep you from.
I assume city will do that anyway. I mean, that's part of what we're doing, is that I'd like to know exactly, like, I'd like to know about every single city commission, all the commissions that are within county. But this is more, how is another county commission
how do they
taking
do
that approach? Do they make it a point that throughout the year, they divide it up and say, we want to make sure that by the end of this year, like, we've touched and communicated with each, so I think.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, I think it might be useful for us if our May meeting is about bylaws. Maybe we should look at the LA County
Yeah, I think I'll
bylaws.
do that, yeah.
Maybe it's useful to see a few examples of other county bylaws.
The only caveat I will say about LA County is they are very big and have a
Yeah.
very big budget.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
keep that in mind when you're
Right.
looking at what they're doing and what they're capable of. Their department, I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head now. They have a pretty strong staff and department, too. So just keep
I'm
that.
more concerned about language.
Yeah, language.
Language,
But I
things
think
like that.
their language,
They also have unusual relationships with some of the local museums that
Yeah.
are, that have been like approved in legislation or approved in, in various other ways
They're
that we don't have. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's, we're on the education curve here, folks. It's useful for us to see other examples and to kind of know, are we on Mark?
The last
Could we
thing
ask
you
for
said-
some copies of things like that to be sent to us as
Yes.
background for
Yes.
next meeting?
So you would like the county, LA County,
I mean, we can,
Yeah.
it might be, yeah.
Yeah, but I would think a few at least would be useful.
I think the other thing that could be useful would be, how do other commissions that apply for grants at the county administer, do just, do others do it?
don't think,
Yeah, I'm not sure, I can't think of any others,
I have
but,
to check out.
Parks and Rec, Parks.
right, that's true.
Oh, that's
We do have to check with that.
Parks and Rec, the department handles their grants and
So
things
to
like
be
that.
fair, I know, if you could look into that, are there any other commissions that
Yeah, let
apply
me,
for it?
we'll
except-
check on that. I see yours.
It looks like we then would be the only commission allowed to go after grants in the county structure.
But let me ask my counterpart for their, the staff liaison for the other commissions and see, how that would work. All right, so it sounds like discussion is exhausted for this item. I'm gonna move on to the next item, which,
Open up for public or?
yeah. So election of temporary,
Getting the drill.
temporary officers, and the only reason it's temporary is because we don't have bylaws yet.
Sure.
So once the bylaws are adopted and you want to continue the same people you've chosen, you may, but that's the only reason we have that wording in there. Can open up to members of the public, to see if anybody has any comments. Seeing none. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide if there's anybody, if you want to nominate yourself or nominate a peer.
I'd like to nominate Felicia Shaw as chairman. Temporary, chairperson, temporary.
Are you willing to accept it?
I'm gonna have to.
You can't do it?
I can't, I
Okay.
just can't.
I can't, okay. Fine,
I just have too much.
I get it.
I appreciate the
Okay,
council.
let's go down the road.
president.
So to clarify, maybe it would help if I clarified a little bit what would be expected of you for the next couple of meetings. One would be working with me to set the agenda, and two would be the role I played today of facilitating the discussion. I will also work with you to make sure you know Robert's rules. We just need very, very basics, like our commission doesn't have to be so formal like the Board of Supervisors, but it helps, especially with longer discussion items. I would be giving you the basics of Robert's rules, so you know how to chair that meeting, that kind of stuff. So that would be your responsibility.
For these next two meetings or for the year?
That
It
is,
seems like, yeah.
until the bylaws or, until the bylaws are
Oh, okay.
adopted, unless your peers decide that they want to keep you on as chair,
Right.
then, which they're looking around as like, you may run that risk. But,
Okay, I'd like to do it.
May,
Somebody has to nominate me.
Yeah, the only thing I would
That's the
suggest is we
second.
get people from different parts of the county, just so we don't have like both people in
Yeah,
I'm
south part
happy
of the
to
county.
I'm District 2.
No, I'm just saying, so whoever the
I
other
am
chair
not in
should
the
be,
city,
no, I'm just saying, the other chair shouldn't be in District 2 or
Okay.
someplace close by
or
that.
the vice chair.
The vice chair,
Yeah.
correct, that's all I'm saying.
So she nominated me.
Are there anybody, any other, anybody?
Stop it, you should be chair.
What?
You
No,
run-
I'm not
you
saying
run
that,
the
no,
meeting.
I don't wanna be chair either. I would be vice, I don't wanna be chair,
You
it's
get
too much
you
work.
get the benefit of my naivete for like 3 months.
So would you be open to vice chair?
I'd be open to vice chair.
I,
I'm not-
Okay, so we have to finish this now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
there's this one.
all right, so there's a nomination for Renee on chair. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, all right. All right, and then I think we'll just, in this case,
Let's do it as a
any of, what?
Can we just do it as a slate?
Yeah, so that'll be, can we, yeah, we
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah, you can do that, if there's, yeah.
can do what?
if-
We can, you can move to say that you want to nominate Renee for chair and Bob as vice chair,
Oh,
as
okay.
a slate.
Yeah.
Right,
That's
and,
what I said.
and it just it just depends if anybody wants to contest that.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
Are you willing to second that slate?
Yes, I am.
All right then.
Is there anybody else who want to be vice chair? I just wanna make sure, I don't wanna jump in.
all right, I think in this, do I actually have to say by each of them, or can I just say?
You can, yeah,
Okay, all Are there anybody opposed?
All in
All
favor,
in
say
favor, I
aye.
should say.
Aye.
All right.
All opposed, say nay.
All right, congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Hey,
Bob.
we're gonna be in touch.
There we go.
We're gonna be in touch.
Yes, yes, I will send you guys an email and, kind of do things.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
Go farther.
Thanks.
And I can
Getting late.
connect you guys. I have your contact information, you guys emailing each other.
Oh, you don't want us
The
to?
major-
No, no,
the
you-
majority board, the
Right.
majority board.
Okay.
That's why all my
Right, you
communications.
two, yeah, you two, the chair and vice chair are
And,
probably,
yeah,
probably
okay.
should be working together.
Yes. So that said, and I'll discuss with you guys too, to make sure you guys heard the same thing from me. Originally, you had wanted information in F-23. Is that still on the board, or would you like to just focus on the bylaws for the special meeting in May?
And the training,
And
Yes, and the
training.
training.
okay.
Is that okay with everybody? I mean, it's a pretty big, like,
Yeah, it's a
in
big
person.
chunk.
A lot,
So I'll delay the F-23,
Thank
until you tell me to tell the chair to put on the agenda, so. All right, that said,
Do you want to talk about the Holocaust thing, since it's,
yes, I do have a quick staff reports, just updates and things like that. We as in like
I'm
cultural
already acting
events,
like a chair.
we do have the, Remember Us, the Holocaust, it will be opening on May 21st. It's in Rancho San Diego Library, so, that information is out there. So it's one of the first things that we're doing under arts and culture, umbrella right now.
Where did they come from? Can you tell us about it?
A supervisor, had wanted to support and felt that, to offset anti-Semitism and some of the things that it was important us to learn about the Holocaust.
Wasn't it Supervisor Fletcher?
Yes, it was.
Look,
Well,
originally.
that doesn't make it less important, that's
No,
just,
the
it's just
exhibit
so
is,
good.
before
It's a
been
really
down
good
in,
one.
Chula Vista.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now it's there, and it's, the goal is to, hopefully eventually it'll spark the beginning of a Holocaust museum somewhere in the county.
Yeah,
That's
that's
the goal.
right.
So, but I've already been out to the space. It's a really great, fairly new museum. There's several other museums right there, the Water Conservation Gardens there, there's a couple other museums just right there and there. It's a really nice area, so hopefully we can get a good attendance to come there.
It's currently somewhat a traveling exhibit with the intention of finding a permanent home. So the supervisor's office gave it grant funding to have a permanent space at least for a year at a county facility ideally. And they are working to see if there's another place either after that year or to find a permanent home.
Could you send us that calendar invite, so you, yeah.
Yes.
And we can all go, but just not talk about business.
Correct. You got it.
Opening,
May 21st, that's a Sunday, at 11 o'clock.
And I think there's gonna be like, food and things like that.
That's it on my end, so it's just adjournment now.
I move we adjourn.
Yes.
Thank you,
Somebody
everybody.
needs to second it.
Thank you, everybody.
All in
Thank you all.
favor? Any opposed? All right.